Hey everybody, it's Christian, and in this video I'm going to show you how to protect Linux effectively against viruses and how you can get notified about anything bad that is found on your Linux servers. We are using the powerful antivirus software ClamAV and connected to Wazuh, the free and open source XDR and CM platform, to build a robust cybersecurity solution you can just run completely for free in your own home lab or basically in any other environment you like. And let me tell you, this is a super important topic, even though you might have heard people saying, oh, you can't get viruses on Linux, or Linux is the most secure operating system and so on. Trust me, in the real world, malware detection on Linux is a crucial thing, especially because most people use Linux as their mail, storage or application server operating system. So let's learn how to keep our Linux servers secure. And by the way, for this tutorial, we are using the same Wazuh installation I recently made a tutorial video about. So if you're entirely new to the Wazuh platform and you just want to know how to easily get started with it, then check it out. It is completely free. Of course, I will put your link to the first video in the description box down below. Now let's expand this setup a little with antivirus detection thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Wazuh. I'd say let's get started. Alright, so for those of you who haven't heard about ClamAV yet, I want to give you some technical background. ClamAV is a pretty well-known and established open source antivirus toolkit for Linux. It was originally designed for email scanning on mail gateways, but you can use it in many other ways as well, since it consists of a number of utilities, such as a flexible and scalable multi-threaded daemon, a command line scanner, and advanced tools for automatic database updates. So it's a great tool set that provides you with many nice features to protect Linux systems, including a real-time protection with on-access scanning. It can detect millions of viruses, worms, trojans, even Microsoft Office macros. It is probably not the most advanced anti-malware technology that is out there. Of course, I mean, there are certainly better engines around in the industry that can detect more viruses or have quicker pattern updates and stuff, but they are mostly paid solutions. And if you want something simple and effective that is free, but also an industry standard you can learn a lot from, then ClamAV is a great choice, because you can use this like a classic endpoint protection on your Linux machines, both desktops and servers, by the way, or you can also use the CLI tools to schedule scans on shared directories on your machines. For example, if you have a NAS and you want to know whether somebody uploaded a virus on it, or you can connect it to your mail gateway. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail about ClamAV configuration today in this video, because for me currently the most interesting idea was how to connect ClamAV to the Wazuh platform, because I just deployed this in my home lab and this is what I'm currently using to monitor any suspicious activity or find vulnerabilities on my Linux environments. And connecting ClamAV to this platform is a pretty amazing project because it gives you a way to centralize the findings of activities of your ClamAV deployments. You can configure alerts and get notifications about any detections. It is highly customizable what you can do with it. So that's what I'm going to show you today. Alright, so let me just show you my current setup and how I'm running ClamAV and Wazuh on my current production system. So this is the Wazuh platform you probably should know from the first video. By the way, I just found out how to enable the dark mode in this application. It was a bit hidden, but you can find it in the menu when you just scroll down to Dashboards Management and go to Advanced Settings. So here somewhere is an option to enable the dark mode, and then you can enjoy the much better user experience in Wazuh. It's pretty cool. As you can see, I've connected all of my production Linux machines already, or mostly of my production systems, to this platform, and also a new virtual test appliance. So this is a test server where I'm currently running ClamAV. So here we can start scanning the entire system or a particular directory for any files and samples. And any alerts or any findings of new viruses should pop up here in the Wazuh platform once we connected it. I'm also running ClamAV in Docker, by the way, so this is a test server 1 where I've created a new project directory called ClamAV, where I have created a compose.yaml file. So here in this file, it's actually pretty simple. I'm just starting a new container image. This is the officially maintained image of ClamAV in the latest version. And this is running the antivirus engine and as well some other toolkits that we can use. For example, there is an automatic database update. This is also included in the same container image. You just need to create a configuration file that is called freshclam.conf, where you can add a database mirror from where you pull down the latest pattern updates for this antivirus engine. And the clamd.conf is the configuration file for the ClamAV daemon. If we go back to the Docker Compose file, you can see I've mounted a directory into the containers file system that is called scan directory. And here we can just add our malware samples that we want to be scanned by the daemon and then execute a CLI command to initialize the scan. It's actually pretty simple. Let me just show you how this works. So for example, if we add a new test file in here and we go back to my test server where the Docker project is running, let's just start this in foreground for now. So here you can see when you start this container image, it's starting the fresh ClamD, so the database update application and the ClamAV antivirus engine. So this will take some time to initialize the database and all of this stuff. So if you see all those log lines in here, you can see the socket is found, ClamD is started. We can now start connecting to this socket. We can just use the Docker execution command and execute a new command into this container image that is called clamd scan. Note, in some tutorials, you might also find the command clamscan. But those two commands are a bit different. So clamscan will start a new process. So it will do all these initialization stuff again. And this is not very effective because the engine is already started and running in the background. We can simply just connect to the socket. And this is by using the clamd scan. So you can add a file in here for the test file that we've just created in here. Of course, we need to put some content in it. Obviously, this is no virus that I have added in here. It's just a clean file. But if we would scan the entire directory, you can see that this now was scanned. There are 0 infected files. Of course, this is fine. But of course, you can also test this with real virus test files. So I would not recommend to just go on the internet and just try to download a virus somewhere. But that's why we have the so-called ICAR files. So on the website icar.org, you can download antivirus test files. So those files should be automatically detected by any antivirus engine as a virus. So here you can just download these files. I've already prepared this and downloaded 4 ICAR test files, 2 simple text files and 2 files in a zip archive. So there you can test if ClamAV can also extract any viruses or malware from zip archives and detect stuff in it as well. Yeah, let me just show you by just adding the icar.com test file in this directory. And if we execute the command again, you can see now we have found a virus with this file name. And yeah, that's what we want to use to trigger an alert in the Wazuh platform to get notified about something. Oh, we have found a virus, so we probably should do something about it. By the way, you can also use the parameter remove to automatically instruct clamd to remove this, or you can also use the move command to put it in a quarantine directory or whatsoever. So you can highly customize this tool, what it should do. So if we use the remove statement, you can see that this file was removed. And if we go to the server, you should see that the test file is still there, but the icar test virus file is removed by the clam daemon. So far, so good. So ClamAV is a nice toolkit for detecting viruses on Linux. However, it is just a basic solution on its own. Yeah? I think it becomes much more powerful when you connect it to the Wazuh platform to get notified about any viruses that are detected by it. And this is actually not really difficult since Wazuh has a built-in mechanism to ingest and analyze events from a particular system, and ClamAV is also automatically supported. The way it works is you just deploy the Wazuh agent on a device where ClamAV is running, and it will automatically grab everything it finds in the relevant log files. By default, the Wazuh agent is looking at the syslog file. So the first thing that we need to do is to make sure that the ClamAV daemon is sending its logs to the syslog file. And then the Wazuh agent will just send everything it finds on the server to the main platform where it's further analyzed. And if it finds something interesting that matches the rule set of the logging analyzer, it will generate an event you can find in the Wazuh dashboard, or you can also use it for alerting and notification later. Now, if you're running the ClamAV daemon on the Linux machine without Docker and this isolation layer, it is much simpler to configure, to be honest. But of course, as you might know, I'm running everything in Docker, so let's have a look how that actually works. First of all, we need to enable the syslog logging using the clamd-conf file, because this is not enabled by default. But there is a very simple setting you can just add to your log file that is called log syslog, yes. And if you restart the container, it will automatically start adding the logs to the syslog file. However, the problem that we have in Docker is that this log file is not automatically going to the host operating system syslog. Instead, it is using the container logging system. That is a bit tricky when you're running ClamAV in Docker, but it is still working. There is a setting you can add to the Docker compose file of ClamAV, and that is called logging. So here you can configure how the Docker engine should log any events inside the containers, and you can set the driver setting to syslog. So by adding this setting, it will automatically log any events written by the container into the syslog file of the host operating system where the Wazuh agent is running, and then it can pick it up and send it to the log analyzer. So that's pretty nice. The only problem that we have is the syslog logging driver will not use the process name inside the container. It is the unique container ID. When you send those log files to Wazuh, Wazuh will not recognize it as a ClamAV log because it's not seeing the ClamAV process name. So what we also have to do is we need to go back to the logging configuration in Docker, and we need to customize some options for the log lines. So here you can set the formattings and whatnot to really customize all of the log files. The thing that you just need to do is you need to add a tag and set this to clamd, so the process name that the Wazuh agent expects to see for any ClamAV logs. So when you set this and restart the container, let's also do this. Now you should see the log files just like in the same format as you would see it when ClamAV would be running on the host operating system and not inside a container. So you see the clamd process name that we just defined in the option tags. So now this is basically already working. So when I just start initializing a new test here, yeah, maybe I should probably run it without a remove and copy the ICAR file in here as well. Let's maybe copy all 4 files and see if it also detects the zip archives. Let's scan it again. And yeah, here you can see it detects all ICAR files as viruses. And now we see all the log lines that are sent to the Wazuh agent. Now let's go to the Wazuh dashboard and let's try to refresh this. Actually, we should already see those events in here. You just need to find it under the threat hunting. You can see there are logging sessions here, for example, when you authenticate with a username and password. So it's opening a new session, SSHD authentication success. And you can see there is ClamAV virus detected event. So here, because we've just scanned the server. So when you go to events, and here you should see there's a rule. Let's just open this and add it to the filter. Now it's filtering the rule for the rule description ClamAV virus detected, and this is the rule ID. So here we can also open this event to see what actually was detected in here. And now we can see, oh, in this directory there was a virus found. We probably should have to do something about it, right? But because we know this was a test virus, okay, that's fine. Now, what's also interesting here to see is that Wazuh automatically logs this rule with a rule level 8. The worse the event or the more critical the event is, it will have a different rule level. So dangerous things usually have a higher rule level and not so important things usually have a lower level. This is also an important value for the email generation and alerts later, but let me just show you a problem that I encountered when I was trying to use this setup. And the problem here is if we open some of those log files, you can see there are valid logs in here, just like the ICAR found and so on. But there are also some other events that aren't virus findings. So for example, this event here, this event just tells us that the clamd socket was found and clamd was started. But as I can see, Wazuh detected it as a virus. So this would also trigger an alert later if we configure email notifications, and of course we don't want this. Now, to get rid of this false positive log line here, we need to customize the rule set in the Wazuh log analyzer a bit. This is, by the way, also pretty cool because you can customize anything in here. There are, of course, default rules that define what log lines will trigger what type of event in Wazuh, and you can easily just look them up if you go to the Wazuh deployment. So let's go to my production server 1 where I have deployed Wazuh. So here we are inside the container, and if we go to that directory, that is here in the log lines var os sec rule set, you can see here are all the XML files that define what type of log events Wazuh will create, what type of alerts or events. There's also a file in here that defines the ClamAV settings. So let's just take a look what is defined in here. And this is a default rule set. You can also see that in this log line here, or this event where it says ClamAV virus is detected, it searches for this word here. It searches for found. And this doesn't really make a difference if it's upper or lower case, actually. The problem is that the word found is also in those lines where it says socket found. So it's just searching for this word here and therefore creating a virus detected event. So I searched for a way to customize those rules and override it. And there's also a nice documentation here how to create custom rules where you can adjust custom things, but you can also override existing rules and change the behavior. So I think it might be useful to change this and modify the matching criteria a bit. We can, for example, use a regular expression that will define only if the word found is at the end of the log file. So for example, when it says virus found, then it will trigger this event, but not if the word found is somewhere in the middle of the log line. And the way how you can do this is we first need to exit the container, of course, and then just take the Docker Compose project down, so stopping the Wazuh platform entirely. And I want to create a new directory that is called rules. And in here, I'm creating a new XML file that is called local rules. Yep, and this we need to mount in the rules directory of the Wazuh platform. And make sure that we're using the Wazuh manager container, of course, because there are 3 different containers in this Compose project, and we need to use this one. Config, and I think it was rules. Yep, and just mount this into, let me just look it up again. Var OSSEC, etc. rules. All right, so let me also use this file here. Otherwise, I'm overriding the entire directory, and I don't want this. I only want to use this here as read-only. So then we have our custom rule set in here. And here, we can basically just copy the output from the default rule set. So I will just copy this here. And yeah, the first things we don't need to modify this. It is only this rule that we need to modify. And what is also in the documentation, it says that you need to add this override yes. So otherwise, when you do an update of Wazuh, your local rules might be overwritten. All right, and now what we want to do is we need to modify this matching word here and add the regular expression for the end of the line, which is the $sign. And yeah, anything else that we might want to modify, for example, if we want to raise the rule level a bit to make this a higher priority, if we want, we could do this, or change the description name. But I think this is totally fine. We just need to make this small modification. And let's start the Wazuh Compose project up again. You can, by the way, also test your rule sets and by just sending a log line to the rule testing engine. So if you just open a new shell inside the container again and then execute the var os sec bin wazuh log test. So this is the logging analyzer, and there you can send a testing logging event. For example, let's just try to find this line here. This originally created a new event, so when we are sending it here, it should say, okay, completed decoding. The program name clamd was found, but the decoding didn't trigger a new event, so that's fine. We still want to create events for viruses found, of course, so let's find a log file where it says virus found. Where it is, let me just create a new event. So here, let's generate some new log lines. There it is. So here we can use this to send it to the log analyzer. And here you can see after decoding, it filtered our custom rule. The ClamAV virus detection. Of course, this looks pretty simple, but honestly, I needed to play around for a couple of hours with this thing until I got it right. But yeah, this is how you can override the default rules and do your own customizations. Basically, this is so cool because you can just look for any other application. Even if you have a custom application where you want to trigger a security event or anything, you can just do whatever you want with this. Just look in the documentation how to create those custom rules. This is really, really useful. So if we go back to the dashboard and yeah, let's just filter not the latest 24 hours, but maybe the last 5 minutes or so when I made these changes and update it. Here we can see 4 events that were created, and those events all are created for those 4 viruses or test viruses that I have scanned. But as you can see, those other entries for the socket creation, this is not generated anymore. And yeah, of course, this is already pretty cool because you can now get notified if any virus is detected by ClamAV on the Linux server. However, I think you can even continue going down the rabbit hole because honestly, I'm not looking every day at the Wazuh platform. Yeah, I just don't look at it. And perhaps there is a virus finding somewhere on my devices. Perhaps ClamAV detected and removed something, or there was a problem. In any case, of course, I want to know when something like this is happening to further troubleshoot, oh, is this a valid finding, if it might be a false positive, or what actually happens on my machines. So if there is an event created something like this, of course, I need to get notified via email. So that's why I think it is absolutely necessary to enable an alerting system for Wazuh. Of course, Wazuh has also an alert management system that you can easily enable. So you just need to modify the OSSec configuration on the Wazuh manager. So if you go to the Docker Compose project and go into the config directory under the Wazuh cluster, here's the Wazuh manager.configuration, and here you can add email alerting. So you just need to switch the email notification from no to yes, add your email from, your email to. And what is also pretty important, Wazuh will not generate any email alerts that are below the number 12 by default. So if you remember, those events that ClamD creates have the rule level of 8. So by default, Wazuh will not generate an email alert for a virus detected. Now, of course, this can be sometimes useful, sometimes not, but we have basically 2 possibilities to change this. We could lower the email alert level from 12 to 8. So this will generate events, something like AV detected, but also when a new user is created on the system. I think this also has an alert level of 8, and maybe this is also something you might want to get notified about. So if you lower the email alert level, you will also get much more noise, but it might also be useful information. So that's what I would recommend. However, if you don't want to get so many notifications, you don't want to see so much noise, you still want to keep the email alert level 12, but want to get those AV rules, remember, you can just go to the local rule settings and change the level 8, that is the default, to level 12. So raise the importance of that event, and then you can also get email alerts, and you don't see anything that is level 9 or level 10 or level 11. So I like to get notified about more stuff than less, and I personally can decide if it's important to me or not. I think it is a good idea to lower the email alert level from 12 to 8. And yeah, then you can just send emails. Okay, so one thing that you might be wondering now, so where do you configure your email account and stuff? And that is unfortunately a pretty ugly limitation in Wazuh, because by default it doesn't handle SMTP authentication. So it can just send emails, but you cannot authenticate to an SMTP account if you're using Google or if you have an SMTP smart host that you want to use. This is not possible in Wazuh by default, unfortunately. However, there's also a solution to this problem. Of course, I also played around with this, and I deployed a simple postfix email relay in Docker as well that I'm running alongside Wazuh. This is also pretty cool. I'm using this container image here because unfortunately Postfix doesn't seem to have an officially maintained Docker image. I think it is not very common to deploy Postfix in Docker, but if you just use this for a simple email relay host, I think you can use a community managed image for this because, yeah, you don't need many functionalities on this here. And this image I found that was updated, yeah, recently 5 months ago. So it seems to be somewhat maintained. And that's what I have used to deploy a new postfix image. So let me also just show you, of course, I'm gonna put this on the boilerplates later as well, so you can just copy and paste it. But here I'm just gonna do it manually. So first of all, I need to shut down the Docker Compose project. So let me just take it down again, and then go into the Docker Compose project of Wazuh, and let's expand this setup a little. So I'm just gonna copy my template that I've written into this file. So here, so at the end, I'm just gonna add a new service that is called postfix. I'm using the latest image version 1.1.39. This is what just recently was 5 months was released on this container image here. And I want to set the host name to postfix. So this is the mail server's host name. It's not really so important because we are just using this for the internal communication here. But postfix still relies on a main.cf, the main configuration file. And we need a SASL password file. So this is where we add the authentication for the SMTP server later. And I'm going to put this into the config postfix relay. So here I'm just going to create a new folder that is called postfix relay and add the main.cf. So here I'm just going to configure postfix. And again, I'm lazy and I'm just going to copy my template, and let me just explain what I'm doing here. So here I'm setting the relay host to SMTP hostinger. So this is where I'm hosting my mailboxes. And I want to enable the SASL authentication. SASL, by the way, stands for Simple Authentication and Security Layer, and it maps it to the SASL password file. So in this file, we're later going to store the username and credential. Now, I want to use TLS, so this should be smart TLS for mail servers, and some other settings. I think you can basically just copy this template. It's not really complicated and so forth. You just need to change this with your SMTP server's host name, the port, and put your username and password in here. The email from and the email to, again, is configured in the Wazuh manager configuration here already. So we don't need to change it in the configuration settings of postfix as well. All right, so let me just add this file here, SASL password. And the format is basically you just use this here and then username and password. Of course, I'm putting my real username and password here. You don't need to see this. And once I have that, it should work. So now one thing is pretty important. This, of course, is an open relay. So for those of you who know what an open relay is, know how dangerous it can be if you expose this on a cloud machine or if you open the port 25 to the public internet. So you can still do this in production. Yeah, it's not dangerous if the open relay is just inside the local Docker network. So therefore, you can see I've connected it to the network backend. There are only the Wazuh manager and the other containers connected to it. And I'm not exposing any port number here, so you can only connect to this open relay from in the Docker backend network. So this is something you need to keep in mind. So don't be too worried about it if you don't expose the port. Usually nothing bad is happening. But if somebody can connect to this application, you can basically send emails anywhere without any authentication. So just make sure you know about this. Okay guys, so during the video editing, I just noticed I missed one very important part when I was recording the video. And that is when you just added your credentials into the SASL password authentication file, this won't immediately work because when postfix tries to send you an email, you will see this error in the logs here. SASL password is unavailable, open database SASL password.db, no such file or directory. And that is because we need to generate the postmap database from the credentials text file before postfix can successfully authenticate using the credentials. How to solve this is actually pretty simple. You just need to open a shell into the postfix container. So here you can see in the etc directory, we have the SASL password text file, but the database is missing. So this you can easily generate with the postmap command. So one thing I just noticed is when you mounted the SASL password authentication text file using your user credentials, this will throw another error, permission denied. That is because the text file is owned by the user you have used to mount it into the containers file system, and we need to first transfer the ownership of that file to the root user in the container, and then we can execute the postmap command, and this will just generate this SASL password.db files. Once you have executed this command, it should work now, so you can just instruct Wazuh to send you a new email by I just initialized a new scan, and here you can see the error is gone from the log files, and yeah, this is an example of the email that I just got from Wazuh. You can see there are 4 events here sent to me via email. There are 4 viruses found. Of course, if ClamAV will scan many files, it won't create a new log event for each and every finding. The Wazuh platform has somewhere a threshold that it doesn't generate too many alerts, of course, but you will get notified. There are multiple viruses found on your server, so you should take a look and yeah, see what's happening here. And that's how you connect ClamAV to the Wazuh platform, even if it's running in Docker. I think this is pretty cool. Of course, one thing that we just need to follow up is how do you use this in production? Because this was just meant to be an introduction video to explain how to connect these two systems, ClamAV and Wazuh. In an upcoming video somewhere next year, I'm gonna expand this setup a little, so maybe I'm planning to connect ClamAV to a simple mail system, or maybe I start playing around with the on-axis scanning. So this will hopefully become a true endpoint protection system I'm running in my home lab. These are just a few ideas I have. I'm pretty sure you guys also have some other ideas how you can use this. So please let me know in the comments of this video, what do you like to see in the future? And if you want to support all these free tutorials I'm creating for you, why not check out my Patreon program, because any support from you is highly appreciated, because that would help me to create more content for you guys. But yeah, that's it for today. Thanks everyone for watching, take care, and I'm gonna catch you in the next video. Bye bye.